Welcome back to the Global Landscapes Forum 2019. I'm Natasha Elkington, your host for the day, and we're here in Luxembourg discussing sustainable finance and trying to find breakthroughs with investors and world leaders and youth and women and communities from around the world. And this morning, I have the pleasure of speaking with Bernard Giraud, who is the president of the Livelihoods Venture. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Okay, so tell us more about Livelihoods.
Well, basically, Livelihoods is an organization that runs impact investment funds with rural communities, smallholder farmers. We finance the restoration of ecosystem like mangrove restoration, agroforestry, agriculture project, sustainable agriculture with small farmers, and also rural energy. So in many parts of the world, in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America.
Okay, very interesting. So what makes your business model different to others?
First, it starts from the private sector. So our investors are private companies, most of them large corporations. Those corporations are engaged in the transformation of their business model to reduce their carbon footprint, for example, through their operation. Some of them have a carbon neutrality commitment. That means that they have, on the one hand, to reduce their footprint through their operation, their factories, the packaging, the logistics. But at the end of the day, if they want to be carbon neutral, they also need to offset part of their emission. And it happens that there are ecosystems that sequestrate a lot of carbon. If you plant trees, if you restore soil, you sequestrate a lot of carbon. So our business is to help poor communities developing sustainable livelihoods, at the same time reducing the carbon footprint of companies that invest equity in our funds. And those companies are also interested in purchasing raw material because they are food companies or cosmetic companies, and they want to move their business toward more sustainability because consumers are asking more and more for sustainable product. And in that sense, those companies are interested in investing to help farmers to produce sustainably. So instead of having eroded soil, deforested land, how can we help farmers to have better income and at the same time enhancing the sustainability of their farm? And the companies get the benefit of it. Of course, they take the risk, and it's a significant risk because we invest in large-scale projects with several thousand farmers. But at the end of the day, they get a double benefit, which is lower footprint for carbon and more sustainability in their supply chain.
Very interesting. So are there any interesting projects that you're involved in that are worth mentioning? Any exciting?
Well, there are many projects which are exciting because we deal with extraordinary field organization. Our partners in the field are mainly NGOs or social businesses or enterprises. I think the legal status doesn't matter. What is important is the connection of this organization with the local communities. They are usually local organizations, very deeply rooted in the countries. They know the culture, they know the will of the people. And for us, the key success factor is the ownership by local communities of the project. The main success factor is when farmers get the benefit. So they will take care of the trees because they get the fruits. They will take care of the mangrove they have planted because they get the fish. So we have extraordinary stories, ranging from restoring the mangrove of Sumatra along the coast between Medan and Banda Aceh, or replanting millions of trees with the Maya tribes in Guatemala, or working with thousands of small dairy farmers in Kenya. This is very exciting when you can see after several years what's happening. We made a survey in Senegal where we have restored the surface of Paris, 10,000 hectares of mangrove with 400 villages. When I say we, it's they, because the villages replanted the mangrove. And 10 years later, we wanted to see what's going on. What was their perception? And what we discovered is that not only the carbon is there, because we measure it every 3 years, but the more important thing is that people were very proud of what they have done. In a sense that we conducted a survey with 800 interviews in those villages, and on top of the answers always came the pride to have restored that mangrove. And the second thing was the fish is back. The fish is back. And the third one was now we can restore the rice pads because the salt water doesn't destroy our paddy fields. So if you combine the three, they have done a huge work. They are proud of it, so they take care of it, and they get the benefit of it, whether it is from fishing or from agriculture. This is something extraordinary that can be done with simple ways. It's not that sophisticated. But we have to combine the right actors, the right combination of public, private partners, NGOs, companies, experts, in order it works properly, which is not so easy.
Yes, because in terms of investing, this is the issue, because all these big banks always want to invest in big scale projects, whereas so the smallholder farmers and small projects kind of get sidelined. So it's like, how do we bridge this gap? Because it's a lot complex.
Absolutely. I think the difficulty with many smallholders is how we aggregate them in order that there is an organization in the field that is able to run a project with a significant number of farmers. But we are careful on the size. We invest in projects that run from 3,000 hectares to 30,000 hectares, but not 1 million hectares. We are careful because we believe that when we invest, we take risk. We invest long term, 10 or 20 years per project. That means that the project size has to be manageable by the partners, by the project developers. So on paper, of course, we can dream that we will invest in projects that are huge, millions of hectares. In reality, we are more careful because we have to give back to our investors carbon credit, tons of cocoa or palm oil or whatever. And our financial investors are expecting a fair return for the effort they make in investing in our funds.
Right, very true. And I understand that you just came from a session on financial perspectives on sustainable land use. So what were the key takeaways from that, or any interesting?
Well, I think what was quite clear in this session is that we are probably at a tipping point. If we get back to the past decade, I think what we have done was a bit marginal. It was looked as a kind of exotic approach. And now gradually, because there is a change in society, because consumers, citizens, different types of organizations are now, even in our personal lives, environment, biodiversity, conservation or destruction is become a core concern for many people all over the world. And the companies, the investors are reflecting this move. And what we can see now is that, of course, it's difficult, it's challenging, but increasingly there are business models that are, I would say, ready for investment. Of course, not everything is square. We are progressing every day, but we can see different types of model in the ground, but also financial model that are quite balanced as far as risk and return is concerned. And I think it will attract more investment in the coming years, including mainstream investors and not just kind of impact investors who are mainly interested in impact. Now we can see more mainstream investors, corporations that are joining the move. We have to be careful that we keep the right balance between mainstream financial investment and the benefit for the communities, because if we switch too fast to financial return, losing or forgetting the fact that those projects work if it's good for people. There is no, for me, at least based on our limited experience, conserving biodiversity without embarking local communities, local people to get the benefit of it doesn't work. And I think it's something that we have always to keep in mind in the way we design and we manage, we monitor the projects.
So in terms, I guess my last question would be, when just talking about rights, Indigenous rights, community rights, because they always seem to be sidelined, and this has to be factored into how, people invest in finance, in the financial sector when they want to invest. How are we going to, how are we going to add that in? Because it's important, as you said. It's the most important thing,
Absolutely. I think, frankly, any technical aspect of the project can be solved one way or another. What cannot be solved is the cultural aspect if we don't take it into account. And I have a good story about it. We started 9 years ago a project with Adivasi tribes in India, in a very remote valley of Andhra Pradesh. And those tribes are really the marginalized people in India, very poor people living in remote places, quite isolated. And after 10 years, based on the respect of those people, their culture, I think we are now engaging in a transformation where, on the one hand, they are connected to modernity, but without losing what is their cultural identity. And I'm very proud to see that, for example, their coffee, which was very bad quality coffee many years ago, is now top quality, and it is sold in a very fashion shop in Paris, in Le Marais. Oh, wow. And also now it is sold through internet in India. Very high quality, quite a good price for them. But at the same time, we have a program with the young ladies, the young girls of the valley, and I can see how they are now taking responsibility in the valley while sticking to the cultural value and the cultural identity. So the question for us is how we can connect those communities to modernity, not making them feel rejected in a way by the global world, but on the other hand, to build it on the respect of their identity, which is not so easy. Yeah. If you just look at carbon, if you just look at money and tons of coffee, you will lose that. And if you don't do that, taking cultural identity as a lever for change and not an obstacle, then you succeed. And I think it's the combination of the two. But for that, we need very good partners. It happens that in India, we work with the Nandi Foundation, which is an outstanding organization that understands the need for being very good on business, very good on agriculture, but also very good in really being attuned with the culture of the people we work with.
Yes, great. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I've learned a lot, and I've got a lot of goosebumps actually from all the great stories that you've shared with us.